So hello everybody who's watching this recording later. We're just using some assets right now to make a pattern in Illustrator, which is very easy. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that all your assets are like grouped. And by grouped, I mean that like
if you drag them, there won't be a piece that like stays
yeah.
behind.
So like if I like grab the green of this tiger, and it went by itself, I would riot. I would flip a table. So you got to make sure that all your things are grouped, and you can group by doing Command G or manually going. Well, actually, that's Mac. That's Macist. That's like only if people use Macs. I think on Windows, I think it's like Shift and G. Whatever. You'll figure it out. You'll find it out. Okay. So anyways, you could also just go to object group. So now that you have all your things grouped, you're gonna wanna grab all of them, right? And then you wanna go to object, pattern, and then make. And oh my gosh, we already have like a pattern basically, but no. You're gonna wanna you might wanna think about it a little bit more and refine it.
But basically, as you can see, Illustrator offers different ways to organize your pattern. So they have a grid, they have brick by row, brick by column, hexagons, and hex by row. And like you see like how it gives you like the ghost of the image, so you can like figure out where it's going to tessellate. And like, for example, if something is going to be overlapping another thing and move it, and it like changes it real time.
Yeah. So the brick by row, you can also change the brick offset. Now, as I mentioned in the presentation earlier, which I will probably re-record again for you guys, you can have half tiles, but you can also have like 1/3 like offsets and like weird offsets and like 3/5 and 4/5.
You can customize.
Yeah. Can you keep an eye on the comments so I can know what they're saying? Yes, Control G. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, let's try and like make this fit in a brick by column. So I'm also gonna want to change the height of this because it's just like it has too much space for like breathing right now, and I would prefer it to be something more like.
So by height, what we're talking about specifically is like in the way that Illustrator is tessellating these things, it has like certain parameters. So like it'll give it like a little margin, so it's not like right next to each other. But you can also make it like tighter or bigger depending on like what you want the pattern to look like.
Mm-hmm.
It would also be nice to play with different scales. So maybe like you want one motif to have like more prominence than another, so you make that one really bigger and you make like the other one smaller as almost like supporting assets.
Like a supporting character in a film.
Or a blender.
Like a blender, exactly. So let's see what we got so far. I'm gonna like apply this to something. Let's say I have a shape, right? And that pattern, mind you, has gone to my swatches right now. So, and I could even like name it. So let's say what will I name it? Sorry guys, it's actually been a second since I used Illustrator. I don't know why it's
well, it'll give you the
yeah.
It'll give you the option to name it before you save it.
Yeah, so let's call it tiger pattern. I know that you could also rename it from there, but for now, let's figure it out. And then you could, and like if you're like in here to like finish up with what you're doing, you could either like click out with the mouse tool,
or click done.
Or click done. And don't get nervous if you get stuck there. And so now that I have my pattern, I have it in a square, and that's so awesome.
And it'll keep going infinitely.
And it'll keep going infinitely because that's just what Illustrator does. Like, so you're gonna actually want to like draw your shape first, and then if you see this, it won't resize correctly. So you could always just click on your swatch again, and it'll have the.
Or you can go on Object Transform.
Yes, and you could go on Object Transform as well. And it could be like scale, and you could be like, do not transform patterns if you want to stay to the size that you initially built it with. And then you could be like, well,
I thought it was transform patterns.
No, transform patterns is okay. Let's say I'll do both. So let's say I want to make the square itself bigger. I want to make the square 150% bigger, but I don't want to change the size or the scale of the pattern.
Boom.
Like that's how you do that. Now, if you want to change the scale of the pattern, but not the scale of the object itself, you would do without transform objects.
Make sure that only transform pattern has the check mark.
And then you could do 150, and then it's like 150% bigger.
So the shape is still the same, but the pattern, like the actual elements, got bigger.
Now, personally, I like to fill an object behind my pattern, because sometimes when you are putting a color in behind this, it kind of tiles weirdly. Let me see if I could show you, but let's say I want this, but like you might get weird things happening because you don't have a perfect hexagonal shape.
It's because the way that Illustrator sees it, they see that shape as another element in the pattern, and they'll try tiling it as if it was part of the actual pattern instead of a background.
Yeah. So that's why I don't really do that. Like you can, oh my gosh, this is what happens when you put a pattern on top of a pattern. But let's say I want the pattern to be like a yellow background. You know, I would just put the objects together. And like when you export, nobody will know the difference of like whether this was integrated into a pattern or like just a separate object behind it.
We should probably talk about the benefits of using Illustrator.
So yeah, the benefits of using Illustrator is that Illustrator uses vectors, which means that like as opposed to Photoshop, which uses raster.
Well, it uses pixels.
Which uses pixels, which is like a raster-based process.
So basically, if you can think about it this way, every pixel is a little dot, and that little dot has all the information in the image.
Yeah.
And those little dots, you can't make more of them. So in Photoshop, if you have 100 dots, you'll only ever have 100 dots. You can have 50, 25, but you can't have 150. Because that way you're stretching out the information. And that's when you get like real blurriness and pixeliness.
Yeah.
But since Illustrator works as vectors, it's basically like points on a graph. So you can make things infinitely bigger and infinitely smaller.
Yeah, I could do this like forever. I mean, not forever because my computer probably can't process the information, but I could just keep going and keep going, and it'll never lose quality because Illustrator is using a mathematical equation. Yes, thank you, Enrique. Yes. So yeah, that's how you can do those things with Illustrator.
And also, personally, Illustrator is pretty intuitive in making patterns.
Yeah, like Illustrator literally has the button for making patterns. Not to say that Photoshop doesn't, but
we'll probably cover that.
We should probably cover a Photoshop tutorial as well. I think we have time. But like, yeah, and I could like change I also like having the color be on its own separate layer, so I could always change it without having to change the pattern itself. But you can also like, okay, so this is like a cool feature of Illustrator as well. You can also be like,
I like yellow. Yellow.
Edit. Oh, you like the yellow?
Yeah, I like the yellow.
Okay, well, I'll do this yellow. Actually, no. Okay.
There it is.
Okay, I like that yellow more than I like the other yellow. So like, let's say we have this object, right? We can also edit the colors, and this is something that's so like amazing to me. Like I could just be like,
oh yeah,
I could just do this. Like I could just be like, woo, and a woohoo, and I could just like keep changing them, and they're all like changing like according to like each other, and like they're all like kind of moving as a family, not just like a singular color.
But if you want, you could also just change a single color in Illustrator. That's for someone else's tutorial, I guess. We're just doing an Illustrator tutorial basically. There's also advanced options. A teacher taught me this, and this is how you would actually change the individual colors.
Yes.
And like simplify them if you want. So
you can also do
what is it? Where was it?
Yeah, where's that thing?
Where's that thing?
Okay. Oh, what is happening? Okay.
Is it this? Oh, okay. So
yes.
Illustrator has this thing where I don't know why it's doing this. Wait, let me go back.
Yeah, go back.
That looked ugly. Okay, so what was it again?
Edit colors.
Edit colors. Colors.
Recolor outward. And advanced.
Options. Illustrator has this thing where it'll suggest you like color family. So like, okay, it has art history, ancient, gives you a whole new pattern. Color books, H2K, new patterns. I don't know. I thought it was cool.
Kid stuff or Russian poster art. You know, like they're like changing it like according to like those actual colors, and I think that's so cool. Like,
so it allows you to like experiment with like different ways of like changing your elements and like making different iterations of the same pattern.
Isn't that like so fun?
You can play with that.
Yeah. So that's our tutorial for Illustrator, and that's how you make the pattern that I had for my the cover of this poster with these assets. So like I said, these assets are available in the Google Drive link that is in the calendar of this event.
Is it in the Canvas page as well?
And it is also in the Canvas page. And for my class, my illustration class, I will also be putting that on our Canvas. So you guys will have access to that at any time. And you can use these assets if you don't have any ready. These are basically spot illustrations. So if you also have spot illustrations or like maybe like a character and some like assets of like things that they use.
Just like any drawing that you want to like.
Yeah. You could just like isolate different parts of it and just.
I literally did this with Sharpie and then just brought them in.
Yeah. And then image trace them. Isn't that so cool? Anyways, so let's save that because that was actually kind of cool. Oh, wait, let me teach you something else before we break from this one. If you want to export just this pattern, right? Like you have like a bunch of junk, right? So this is my 4th artboard. And you can also save, like, okay, so Illustrator, you need to like use the export button because if you just save as, it's gonna ask you like, oh, do you want a PDF, a TIFF, or whatever? So you're gonna wanna do export and export as if you want like a PNG or a JPEG. So let's say I want pattern of tigers. I'm gonna use artboards and I'm gonna say 4, which is the one that I chose to do. So I'm gonna put it on my desktop. I'm gonna be like high quality, 300 dpi, and boom, it is on our desktop. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, it's just saving. Give it a second. And boom, it exists on my computer now. And you would even tell that there was like a separate object as the background. Isn't it so beautiful? It's like seamless. It goes on forever. So yeah. Okay, I don't know, for my Photoshop course, I learned you can make a tag swatch, which means any asset using that individual swatch will be changed automatically if you just adjust the swatch. So I think I know what you're talking about. I think you're talking about like global editing, which is like a possible thing in Illustrator too. I mean, we're gonna show you guys how to do it in Illustrator as well. So let's like.
We just did it in Illustrator.
No, not Illustrator. I mean Photoshop. I may need to like refresh myself.
So we have a cut here.
Yeah, I guess we should have a cut here. Let me stop recording. So since that was the Illustrator recording. So thank you everybody for watching. Yeah, hopefully you learned something new about Illustrator.